Well, Mike, we're so glad to have you in our church, and I wanted to hear your story and have you be able to share a little bit about your story with our church. So can you just start at the beginning and tell us about your journey of being deaf?
I grew up in a very small town, and my family and all of them, every Sunday, they always went to church, always going to church. Even though those people in my family, looking at me, they couldn't quite figure out how I became deaf. They don't know. They're not sure whether I was born deaf or I became deaf. Probably at least for certain by the time I was 1. Maybe it was high fever that caused it, but the point is that I grew up as a deaf person myself. And I would just have to just look around, and there was all this talking and talking and talking. And of course, I didn't understand anything at all. And of course, they were singing hymns and those people, they're very friendly and, trying to be helpful, but they didn't really know what to do with me. I'm a deaf person. So, they gave me coloring books to color, and Jesus was there in the markers and in the board. But of course, I didn't understand the church or what was going on. All the family, they were all hearing, and they didn't know anything about sign language. They weren't familiar about deafness itself. Nothing. And so there was a struggle, and finally found someone who told them, hey, there's a school for the deaf in Jacksonville, and arrived there, went in, and wow, just so overwhelming. Had never seen so many people who their hands were just going to town. And really, I didn't have language at that time. At age 5, I had no language. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I just loved the school because I felt sameness. Then I graduated. Then I went to Gallaudet. And Gallaudet, that was the place for me. And it was strong. It was a strong community of deaf. The education of deaf people, the socialization. Oh, wow. I met Cindy when she was a graduate student, and said hi, and I met her at the track. She was running track in the mornings. And Cindy kept thinking, who is that guy? Who is that guy? So, okay. So I had a connection again. And then it went from there. And then later on we married, and we had 2 children. My wife had asked me, do you mind going to a church? Some had been going to a church. She had gone 2 times before. She had asked me, and a friend was pulling her to go to church. And so I told her, church are all the same. All the churches are the same. Why should I go? No. See, this had been 30 years. 30 years. She said, please try it. Just try it for yourself one time. I said, okay, I'm willing to go. And went in there, and we saw an interpreter. Wow, that was great for me. There was an interpreter there. We sat there. But inside I was still resistant. I was holding off. And I saw the pastor, Pastor Kevin. And he was preaching and talking about life, how we have in our lives can apply that to God through the Bible, through the different things. Had many reasons with that as it connected with life, and it fascinated me. Wow, that was good. My wife, she's hearing, and worked together with the Bible reading at home, and she helped me to read the versions of the scriptures, and that applied to me, and to have a better awareness of Christ. We prayed together in the mornings. My wife, more than me, I'm less than my wife, but still, involved with her prayers, and, at home every day, and still connected there.
Is it possible to be whole and to be deaf at the same time? Because I think a lot of hearing people don't understand how those two could coexist at the same time.
I strongly believe that God gave me as who I am for a reason. The same thing. If God has you here for a reason for your life and how you can build a relationship with that community, God gave us a better understanding to help each other, to apply life, and to be connected, working together. You want to add anything, Larry, so that I can explain it to him? My parents were deaf. They grew up deaf. And it just so happens that my grandparents, when they found out that my mother was deaf, they moved to Austin. And they built a home across the street from the deaf school. And that led to my grandmother teaching at that deaf school for 30 years. My aunt became a principal there. And then for four generations in my own personal family, with my daughter being the fourth, working at that deaf school. So I grew up in what we would call the deaf world, deaf community. Oftentimes we had people come up, oh, you're deaf. You want me to pray for you so that you won't be deaf anymore? And it came across as saying, oh, you're broken. You want me to pray for you so you're not broken anymore? Well, in a very, very rich deaf culture, that came out as not well. But Scripture does say, who hath made the deaf? Have not I, the Lord? So deaf people feel that they were made deaf for a purpose. And to be asked, can I pray for you to be healed, would come out the same way as if you met that person with one leg. Can I ask you to be healed? We're not broken. You know, I believe that. I believe God had a reason for me to be that.